Well, welcome everyone. This is going to be my first meeting as chair, so I apologize if I do things incorrectly. I believe we start with by calling the meeting to order. So this is the Finance Committee for the Town of Easton on this Thursday, May 7th, 2026. And we'll just start with a roll call. So Arthur,
Here.
Matt,
Here.
Steve,
Here.
Mike.
Yep. Hello.
Perfect. So we have quorum. And before we get started with anything, I'd like Liz to just introduce herself, and so we can all welcome her to the town. Well, she's actually a resident of the town, but I'll let
Yes,
her do the introductions.
thank you. So I'm on day 9 working for the town. I'm coming up to speed on everything very quickly. Everybody's been very helpful as far as helping me to get acclimated. I hope you can all bear with me tonight. This is my first run through presenting the articles, but it'll be a good segue getting into town meeting. A little about me. I've been in municipal management for about 20 years now. I've served Plimpton, Walpole, and the city of Fall River. I'm also a town resident, and naturally, I have an interest in being fiscally responsible and doing things in the best interest of our residents and taxpayers. I'm really looking forward to working with all of you and getting through this year's town meeting, and I guess more significantly, when we start our work for the following fiscal year's budget process. So I'm happy to be part of the team.
Thank you and welcome. Would you like us to introduce ourselves as well?
Sure.
So you know me, we've
Yes.
met before. So I'm Kelly Lamb. I'm co-chair of the Finance Committee. Arthur, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I'm Arthur. My wife and I have been in the town since November of 2024. Liz, we used to live in Medfield.
Oh, I have family in Medfield.
Yeah, so like just north of Walpole. So like I
Yep.
worked in Walpole, that was familiar. So yeah, moved here in November 2024, joined the Finance Committee April of last year. So
Great.
Matt?
Yeah, I'm at Barrowman. I've been in Easton for 19 years or 18 years and change. And I've got four kids. I got a 20-year-old daughter and an 18-year-old daughter. They've gone through all of the Easton school systems, and then two sons, a 16-year-old son and a 13-year-old son, and they're actively inside the Easton program. And I've lived in two houses in Easton, my current residence, and then which is in um, it's right off of Lincoln Street and right by Borderland back entrance. And then I used to live on Howard Street down off of 106. And I'm brand new to this, so I just got sworn in earlier this week on Wednesday. And before that, uh, I I joined the committee a few months earlier. And so but I just got elected for the first time just now.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Mike?
I'm Mike DePietro. You joined the right meeting tonight. We're the fun committee. Um, but I've been in town for, I don't know, about 15 years or so. Live up on Cosmo Road. Like I say, my property abuts Stoughton, which is why I was just talking about Stoughton conservation land a minute ago. But it's really a pleasure to meet you. I've been kicking around in the finance committee for, I don't know, I guess this is my ninth year.
Oh,
Um,
wow, that's
yeah.
great.
So we'll see where things go from here, but delighted to get to work with you.
Thank you.
Steve?
Well, welcome. Like Mike, sorry, Matt. I'm one of the new guys. Just got sworn in last week. Last meeting was throw me right into the fire. I've been in Easton now for 26 years, so I might be the veteran. I'm not sure. I've heard from everyone, but might be here longer than everyone else. My daughters went get through the school system. I've been in the same house in Summer Street for the whole 26 years. I really enjoy the town, what it brings. I grew up in Braintree, and I say that Easton is like Braintree was when I lived there. It was not commercialized. It was a lot of open space, and it's really built up and a place that, frankly, I would never want to move back. I love the space. I love the town. The people are great. I've been working in, let's see, finance, accounting, and procurement for pretty much my whole career. So I'm pretty good with numbers. Not a pro, but I'm pretty good to them.
That's great. Thank you. Jeremy, welcome. We're just introducing ourselves to Liv.
Hey y'all, sorry to be late. I'm Jeremy Tomelio. I previously was on this committee for about 2 years, from 2018 to 19, I want to say. Took a hiatus, went to grad school, born and raised in this town essentially for the past 17 years, 16 years. So living here, born and raised kind of thing. But I love this committee. Was on here previously under Patrick, and it's great. I also was getting ready today, and I thought, if DePietro's coming, I'm not going to be the latest one, and then I was. So sorry, DePietro.
Life's little triumphs.
I previously served with him, and he was always the guy who wore the academic or the athletic shorts. So
You'll never guess what I'm wearing.
yeah, hey, same. Again, I was getting. I thought it was in person, so I was getting ready, and I'm just like, if DePietro's showing up, I'm not gonna be the only one in shorts. It's gonna be fine.
I do think we should probably start doing some in person, just because we have so many new members. It would be great to, get to know each other.
Definitely got to
more.
get together.
So yeah, I can talk to Shireen about that when she gets back.
Perfect.
All right, awesome.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. You could say something.
No, I was going to say Steve's a numbers guy, and I'm an attorney by trade, so I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum, just so everybody hears.
Well, I deal with legal every day because I'm in procurement, sourcing, contract negotiation. So I deal with lawyers and stakeholders, and similar to you.
Don't worry, we all hate lawyers, so you're good there.
I'm a sales guy. I'm usually on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
Until you need one.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move over to working on the articles. So today we're going to do Articles 5, 6, 7, and I hope that you guys had a chance to look at everything before the meeting. All right, so let's start with Article 5. So I'll start by reading it. To see if the town will vote, so it's Article 5, Supplemental Fiscal Year 2026 Budgets. So this article is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or appropriate by transfer from available funds a sum of money to supplement fiscal year 2026 budgets or take any other action relative hereto. Submitted by town administrator. The explanation for this article is several budgets require supplemental funding. The DPW snow and ice budget requires $486,133 due to the severity and frequency of this winter's storm events. The Solid Waste and Recycling Enterprise Fund will require $620,000 to meet its revenue and expense targets, and the Sewer Enterprise Fund will require $39,593 for additional debt service. Anticipated funding sources are free cash and available surplus within enterprise funds. So, I don't know, Liz, do you feel like this needs any explaining?
Maybe I should just run through a little bit more information about the solid waste and recycling item, since that's kind of a larger amount. It's required to meet our revenue and expense targets. Generally speaking, where the program is winding down, that's going to affect the revenue numbers as we close out this fiscal year, because typically when the billing would go out, they would take in funds prior to that next quarter beginning. So with that as well, there will be some residual funds in that enterprise fund, roughly $100,000 when everything is all settled out, and they're going to keep that for any ancillary costs that might come up after the program has been wound down. There's a possibility that DPW may have to pay to dispose of excess barrels, that sort of thing, if there are any trash liens. So that's the intent there. And I would just add that needing to supplement this year's budget from that surplus fund is another indication of why the program was no longer financially viable. And as far as the other two items, I mean, the snow and ice is fairly self-explanatory. It just required such significant resources. And the sewer enterprise fund, that's going to be funded via surplus. When I spoke with the finance director, it seemed like that was just an interest payment allocation. Sometimes those would be made via the enterprise fund or sometimes via surplus. So that one didn't really require much further explanation. But I'd be happy to do my best to answer any questions or if you have any concerns.
Thank you, Liz.
I definitely have a few questions, more around the solid waste and recycling fund for the 620. Was that not properly budgeted in the 2026 budget? Is it just an overage? Because that's a pretty significant number. In addition, is that just a partial cost to run the program? Because we're all having to switch to another provider. And what I'm seeing is that even if you stayed with waste management, the cost is the same. I moved on to Troop and the cost was less. So why is there such a fee that the town is carrying when the costs are staying the same? Yeah, I don't know if anybody on the call would be able to answer that.
So,
there was so they took in less projected revenue, and that could possibly be attributed to people migrating away from the program, knowing that it's coming to an end. So there's a projected variance there just from user charges alone of almost $500,000. So it's not hitting the target, is what really the issue is.
Did we guarantee this revenue? Sorry, it's Jeremy.
I beg your pardon? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
No worries. Did we guarantee this revenue in the contract? Is that why we're on the hook for this?
No,
why
we
are we
needed
paying
to
this? I think is my
close out
question.
the program. Like we're not
Yes.
taking in those payments.
So is there a number that we agreed to though? I guess why are we paying this money if we're not receiving the income? Did we agree to this number previously?
It's to close out the program.
I understand that.
Balance
We
out.
do have a contract with Waste Management, and it closes on June 30th. If that's what you're asking, Jeremy.
Gotcha.
No,
So we're contractually obligated to pay a certain amount of money. Is what I'm asking. Why are we paying this money? I understand we have a contract, and the contract is running out. What I've yet to hear is why do we owe them $500,000
So some of what
besides paying the closing contract out?
So some of what I understand, and this unfortunately Wendy couldn't be here tonight for good reasons. So with some of this funds, they're prepaid in the previous fiscal year. So for the first quarter, it's actually paid in the prior fiscal year. So that money goes into the enterprise funds. So we then have to pay that out from the enterprise funds. So some of this,
because we have guaranteed some contractual minimum.
I don't know anything about guaranteed minimums, but that money gets put into there before we pay it out. So some of the money that is due is put in enterprise funds before it's paid. Because we collect it ahead of time. So some of this is for services rendered. I know that.
Yeah, there's previous and past tense here, services rendered and services to be rendered. I just still don't understand why we're paying this money.
And then there's a certain amount that actually I think is for closing it out. Do you have the numbers, Sean, by any chance?
Yeah, I can pull up
How it's broken up?
Yeah, in your packet, I can share my screen.
Let me stop.
And I just want to add, 620,000 again. That's a significant material number. If the number were 50K, I don't know that we'd be having much of a conversation. But it's over $500,000 that we have to pay for. And I think it's to. I'm sorry, was it Jeremy's point? Were we obligated to pay based
Yeah, I've
on
yet to hear anything that obligates me to pay this, or
Yeah.
obligates the town to pay this, or even
I mean,
come close
if
to
we
obligating.
reduced volumes, then we would reduce cost.
Correct.
If we guarantee some level of revenue payment, regardless of what the volume is.
Correct.
So Sean just pulled up on the screen. This is the same sheet that I just pulled out here on paper. And this is what we had gone over with Wendy as far as where that 620,000 number came from.
This doesn't tell me though where this number comes from. This tells me
Look
it's a
at the
number. I don't see
actual.
any obligation.
That's the
I'm not seeing.
projected too, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
There's a
what did you say, Matt?
That's the projected, and then there's the actual. Sorry, Jeremy, to interrupt.
Nope, that's exactly.
I just am looking at this, and I didn't see this before. I didn't review this before, but thank you for presenting it, Sean. It's very informative, and I think it helps clarify this point because it shows the expenses. It lines out all the projected expense. It has the revenue and expenses lined out, which is very helpful to see. But back to the point at hand. This is projected, like the amendment that we're talking about, or the number 5 is for revenue and expenses. And is that the projected, or is that the actual?
It's a projected.
Right. So this is for past. This is to cover our past expenses from the past. So we don't need to do the projected, right? Because we have the actual. Or I just don't understand. Can you just help me understand it?
Admittedly, I don't have the specifics with Wendy not here.
Like some of it, I think we would almost need to go back and reference possibly the waste management contract, which I'm sure we can get access to. What I have in front of me here, in that surplus fund, as of July 1, 2025, there was a little over 760,000 in there. And then we would be taking the 620 plus factoring in an additional 100,000 to fully decommission the program, and to get rid of all the barrels, and any residual costs. And when all is said and done, there would be a balance remaining in that surplus fund projected, of roughly 43,769. And then at that point, obviously the program would be no longer in existence, and those funds, I'm guessing, could be allocated elsewhere via town meeting vote.
Can we just go through this page a little bit, and can you explain what these different columns are? I understand the words, but I don't think they have the same meaning. So what's the projected versus actual, and what's the budget, the final budget, and can you just walk us through really quick?
Yeah, can you answer Matt's question, but then from there just raise your hand, so because there are a few questions, so just make sure you raise your hand and I'll go in order.
Okay, so Amendment 620.
This might be the very last time that I ever raise my hand. And
I've never seen Mike raise his hand.
Yeah, I'm kind of uncomfortable, holding again.
Okay, so what I'm gathering from this is that the original budgeted amount for the program, which would take into account both revenue and expenses, was like the 2.1 million number that you see over on the left. And then as far as year-to-date actual, looking at what's been brought in, if we go up to the revenue, the user charges, that's what's physically being brought in. So we brought in 1.5 at this point, and then there were a few other sources of revenue, trash liens, that sort of thing. So that's that 1.5 number. And then you have the 210,000 projected remaining to bring in, and that leaves a variance. And then on the expense side of everything, you have well, if you break it down, like, I don't know how granular you want to get as far as salaries and expenses. If we just take it all total as expenses, figuring in that 2.1 number, and then what we've actually spent year to date, the 1.78. And then when you factor out how much is projected remaining, and that's based on like how much time is left in the fiscal year, like making those payments, that's where you get that other variance. And when you calculate out those numbers, the differences between the expenses and the revenue, that's where the 620 is coming up with, or 619 and change. Wendy did also explain to me that as far as the program goes, you're looking at, for a few months left, typically you'd get like, it would be roughly 194,000 in revenue. But then you have billing expenses, and the town is also paying a company called Capital Strategic, and they're helping make the transition over. Sean might be able to speak to their role a little bit more, but that's roughly another 40,000 that we need to make sure that that contract is closed out. I'm looking to see if I have any other notes here. She gave me a lot of specifics here.
In general, the cost of the program did go up, and that was why the select board voted to discontinue the program, because we were charging $100 per quarter, but really the reality of being able to conduct this program, we were proposing, if we did keep it, would have been about $135 per quarter. And then that's why we just decided to nix it, because the costs were going up so much that it is not a sustainable program in the long run, because we also have to pay, we're obligated through the contract to pay for to do the customer service, but also to do the barrel replacement. And so we end up spending a lot of our staff time and resources, and that's part of the equation when we're getting rid of trash altogether. And so this is, like Liz said, to just close it all out.
Jeremy, you have a question?
I got a few, and honestly, I know I'm a little rushed at this, but I don't think this is something it sounds like we're not prepared to vote on this today. So I would say we move on. We don't have answers from Wendy. We are asked to endorse a over $500,000 amount of money that nobody can tell me why we owe this money. The only thing I've heard so far is we close out the contract, which I understand, but nobody has told me if we've guaranteed this money, why we owe this money, besides closing out the contract. So I'm just going to say we move on here, and we wait till Wendy and we get a meeting. And I know town meeting's coming up, but
Yeah, I mean,
there will not be a favorable vote for me, and it sounds like other people. So I think we can save everyone's time here.
I mean, I'll take the blame here, because they asked me if we wanted to switch until Wendy could come, and it's just been so hard to get us together that I said I will try and do it without her. But we do have the option of always coming early to town meeting.
Yeah.
And trying to, meet with her ahead of time and vote on this article. So, we can skip this one and then just vote on the rest if we feel like we have enough information for that. But I do see some hands raised, so I'm going to let Steve ask his question if he wants to.
Yeah, I have two very quick questions. One of the things I'd like to understand is as the users go down, as Liz mentioned, transitioning to other programs, that goes down. Well, frankly, if the users' fees are going down, then the expenses should come down. But the expenses went up. At the same time, the users are going down. I can probably speak for the group. I think we really need to dig into what is the 2.36 million or 2.4 million represent in expenses. It's a pretty nebulous term in there, and I think we need to understand what's in there. What is part of that money, because that's what's driving this $600,000 variance.
I have a sheet here that Wendy provided me with, and I'm going to ask her to share it with all of you in preparation for town meeting. Sean, for your reference, it's called trial balance by account. I can show it to you tomorrow. But I think that maybe if she sent this around, it's a little more clear cut than the other sheet that looks like it was included in the packet. So we can get that, and we can also maybe get some clarification too on the waste management contract itself and what the actual contractual obligations are throughout the end of the fiscal year, and also if there are any other expenses associated with kind of decommissioning the program. I think that that would be helpful. So we can pull that information together if you want to meet prior to town meeting. And if you guys think of any other questions along the way, please forward them along so that Wendy, myself, or Sean, so that we're equipped to get those answered for you.
Yeah, I agree with Jeremy that we should just move on from this article.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next article.
Before we do, the specific thing, Liz, if it helps, my biggest question is on, and I don't think we can answer it right now, is that remaining 627 expense there. That to me is sticking out like a sore thumb.
Okay.
Exactly to Steve's point, our utilization is going down and our cost is spiking up. It doesn't make any sense to me that number is there. As far as I'm concerned, this is something that I suspect we're going to have to pay for, but in order to recommend it, I need to be able to articulate precisely what I'm suggesting that the community pays for. Like like we're going to have to make good on our contracts, but I mean, what it actually is that we're, quote unquote, buying for it is ambiguous. So I don't know if that helps. But the reason I'm putting this forward is just as we go, I imagine it'll end up being just perfunctory before the meeting. But the types of things that we're going to want to hammer out here is sort of there's a narrative to these numbers, and I have no idea what the narrative is. Just out of the blue, a program which should have cost us 1.7 million, or I'm sorry, should have cost us 2.7 is costing
2.1. Yeah.
Whatever the number is. I'm jumping around visually on the spreadsheet. It's just costing us a heck of a lot more, and I can't put my finger on what that story is. Anyway, sorry, that was all I wanted to say.
Just before we move on, I understand why we're moving on from this. I do appreciate that there are some lingering questions. I just want to note my hesitation to scheduling this for the day of town meeting. My experience from last year is that it was, and I think the three people who are new here can speak to this. We were all sent here to render a recommendation to town meeting, and obviously we can do that at if we have the session on the day of town meeting. But I think we have an obligation to the town to have an open and public forum to iron this out, particularly given the size of this ask, and to allow the town to hear the facts, digest it in a way that's going to be easily accessible. I don't think it's really fair to the town if we do it on the day of town meeting, particularly given the timing of it, and just like I remember last year we had the session prior to town meeting, but it was certainly not in a way that we could have been, I think, made it a little more accessible to the town. So I just want to note that objection. I understand if we can't get a quorum, but
We
I
can
think
surely try to get a quorum for next week if the folks that are on this call and the other members that are not here are amenable to meeting next week. I know that Wendy and Liz and myself would be happy to schedule another meeting.
I mean, I think my inclination is we've been debating this for 20 minutes. I think we still have some room to iron this out. Clearly, I'm in the minority, but I don't think doing this a day of the town meeting is appropriate.
Well, hopefully we can try and schedule it for next week, and hopefully, you know, when Wendy responds to these questions ahead of time, it clears things up before we even get together.
I also just want to go on that. There's almost certainly going to be some type I understand the hesitation, but there will be some type of meeting before town meeting. And I would argue that the best way to get attendance, nobody shows up to these meetings. The best way to get attendance is to do it before town meeting. If the concern is transparency and getting civic engagement, the best way we're going to do that is at town meeting. And nobody's going to show up either way, but there's
So when
a
we
meeting on random Tuesday is not going to get the engagement that we're looking for.
I would just say when we meet, yeah, we don't get the engagement that we want ever, but when we meet at town meeting, what Arthur is describing is so we go into a room elsewhere. It's not in the big hall where the auditorium with everyone coming. It's sort of separate and it's just us.
I mean, it's still open meeting, so it's still public and we still have to publicize it. And it sounds like Sean's goal is to get people to show up to that meeting to hear this discourse.
No,
So I don't
my
think-
goal is that the finance committee gets the information they're looking for with enough time to be able to ask questions and not feel like they're rushed.
Gotcha.
This is a meeting that's being broadcast on ECAT weeks before town meeting and easily accessible to the town in advance of town meeting, and that is very different than having a meeting in a room when people are just getting off of work to debate a warrant article that everybody kind of acknowledges is a lot of money. And I think that's where my frustration is coming from, and my urging to do this beforehand. If people don't want to engage with this, that's their problem. But I think we have an obligation, particularly of a size of an ask this big, to make the discourse as available as possible.
Yeah, I agree with Arthur and Jeremy. I think they both said we need to, I think as a town, we need to be more transparent about these types of issues that come up. And I think that's been a challenge for many years in the town. And I think that's why some of the teams and organizations get sort of a bad rap, is the lack of transparency and everything else. So the more transparent we can get, the more details we can get around what this is to make an educated decision, the better off we'll be.
I think at this point we're all saying the same thing, so we can just send out a meeting invite or a doodle poll or something to see when the best time to meet is. All right. Is everyone ready to move on? Or Matt, did you have something else you wanted to say?
I just wanted to second Arthur's voice, is that I think we should meet before the town meeting.
Well,
I don't know if
good.
that's what we were getting at, but I agree with that.
Yes, so that's what the doodle poll is going out for. Okay,
Great.
so we'll see if we can get a date where we can get quorum. Okay, so
On that also, sorry to interrupt, Kelly, can we get the actual total number? Nowhere in that article is the final dollar amount.
for all these added together, you mean?
All of it, yep. I mean, I can do the math, but I've never seen an article number to ask me to recommend something and not give me the dollar amount.
Is it typical that these get all lumped together?
For the supplement?
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we look at these items and like snow and ice budget, we've already incurred the cost. We've paid the folks to do that. We really don't have much of a choice on that. Sort of is what it is. And I think that, I can't speak for everyone, I think that's almost like a no-brainer. The 39,000, yeah, it's a number, but I don't know that's material enough to have a huge debate. But certainly we're focused on the 620. Again, is it standard to have all three lumped in so it holds everything up, or can it be split apart?
So that is customary in some instances. Obviously, this is my first go round with preparing for town meeting here in Easton. One thing that we could consider doing for next year, because I think that you bring up a great point, would be on an article such as this to put a little chart into it And then you could actually take individual votes of recommendation on each line within the chart. That's another option that I've seen employed in the community that I worked in prior.
I don't believe we're allowed to do that unless we break it up into separate articles.
You can
I do
put
not
a
believe we're allowed to
hold on
break
an
one article.
individual line. You could put a hold on a line, similar to like.
And then vote on each line individually, though, right?
I'm sorry?
And then vote
You
on
have to
each
vote
line
it individually.
Okay, so it was essentially separate articles. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we ready to move on to 6? Perfect. Okay, so Article
So, yeah,
6.
just to say, like, and I'm sorry to cut you off, Kelly. Obviously, being new, I think that this was like a really good conversation. I think, from my perspective as a new guy, to be able to have this information, the questions, and sort of, I think we're all sort of on the same page with this. I think it's good.
Thank you. All right. So Article 6, fiscal year 2027 operating budget. This article is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or appropriate by transfer from available funds a sum of money to defray the town charges for the ensuing fiscal year, including the salaries of several elected and appointed officers of the town, including cost items for collective bargaining agreements, and make appropriations for the same as listed below, or take any other action relative thereto. Do I read all the individual
No.
lines? Okay.
Nope, that's okay.
Please don't.
I guess I don't want to either. So this is,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say the total fiscal year budget is 114,731,841. Explanation: this is the annual operating budget for the town. The town administrator will make a presentation at town meeting regarding this proposal. All budget documents and details are available at this web address. Sean, would you like to explain this further?
Yep, I'm just going to go through the slides that I presented to the select board on Monday night. If I could just share screen here, and I'll just go through those and we can take questions afterwards. Okay, so just to start off, for a brief recap, we started the budget. I know that there was a couple of new folks that are on the finance committee, so I'll just go through the rough timeline of events from this year. January 12th, our previous town administrator, Connor Reed, presented the preliminary budget on January 12th, which at the time had a $430,000 deficit. We moved forward to March 23rd when we had a little bit more clearer numbers on things like healthcare and other expenditures. And we also had the governor's proposed budget to work from, and that's when we presented budget change memo number 1. On April 7th, we held, some of you were here for this, and others, since you're new, you weren't here for this, but we had the joint meeting with the select board and the finance committee to go through the departmental budgets. Easton Public Schools, the Ames Free Library, Southeastern Regional, all made presentations on April 7th. And then, as we know, April 28th was our annual town election, where we had 2 override questions, neither of which, as many of you all know, both failed. So those numbers won't be included in or are not included in the final budget that's presented at town meeting. And then on May 5th, I presented the select board budget change memo 2, which includes not too much of an update, but it includes updated numbers from the House of Representatives. They submitted their FY27 budget proposal, and so we were able to update our numbers based off of that. And then May 18th is when we will have annual town meeting and we'll vote on the final budget. As mentioned earlier, neither of the proposed operating override questions that were presented to voters on April 28th were approved. So therefore, we're proposing one budget compared to, for folks that were at town meeting last year, there was an override contingent budget and a non-override budget. This one will just be one final clean balanced budget. As I mentioned, the House of Representatives submitted their FY27 budget proposal, and that came out at the end of April and resulted in a net increase to state aid compared to the governor's budget. So you'll see some changes in those lines. This is just an overview of what was presented, the difference between the March 23rd budget change memo number 1, which was balanced, with budget change memo 2 on May 4th. You'll see the adjustments that were made on both the revenue and expense side, and we still remain, as of May 4th, with a balanced budget that we're submitting to town meeting as required.
Where did this money come from? On the key change, sorry, Sean, on the key changes,
Yep.
I see that the 15,118 is the same number twice, and I don't, where did this money come from? Am I missing something?
Yeah, can I go through the rest of the presentation?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if we're gonna go over it, sorry.
Yeah. So the key changes to revenue, state aid is the biggest one. There was a net increase of $308,672, which reflects the most recent House budget proposal, with a notable increase to the Chapter 70 minimum aid to $160 per pupil, which is $85 higher than the governor's proposal, which was set at $75 per pupil. And that is $10 above the FY26 minimum aid level of $150 per pupil. At the same time, UGA, unrestricted general government aid, is projected to be at $47,389 lower than the governor's budget. You'll see that charter tuition reimbursements are expected to increase by $109,500. However, that gain is fully offset by a corresponding $120,994 increase in both state and county assessments. Taken together, these changes result in the $308,672 that you see under the state aid section of this slide. For local receipts, the decrease, in light of higher than projected state aid, we've adjusted estimates downward. Wendy, our finance director, revised those estimates to our local receipts downward to more conservative levels, as you can see on the screen here. When adjusted for the ambulance receipts, which we're no longer collecting now that our ambulance service has been privatized, these changes result in an overall projected local receipt increase of 4.97%. Other financing sources that have changed include an increase to septic betterment receipts, reduction to the opioid settlement funds to more closely align with anticipated costs, and a decrease in revolving fund transfers. We've also adjusted some of our enterprise accounts by reducing our water revenue by $196,128 to reflect updated financial projections, as well as the sewer enterprise transfer from betterments, which will be reduced by $4,431 to align with a corresponding decrease in debt service. On the expense side, there are only slight changes on the expense side, starting with adjustments to our debt service, changes to non-exempt general fund debt, as well as water and sewer enterprise debt service have been addressed in the revenue slide I just covered, where corresponding offsets and financing sources are described. On our state and county assessments, those, as I mentioned, increased by $120,994 based on the House budget proposal, driven primarily by higher charter school assessment obligations, but are mostly offset with that $109,000 charter tuition reimbursement I had mentioned on the last slide. Finally, in the town clerk's budget, we have we've increased their budget by $29,294 to account for 2 elections that are scheduled in FY27, both the state primary and general elections that are in September and November. These costs were originally removed from the operating budget with the intent to fund them through a separate article, which is actually Article 8 on the town meeting warrant, using free cash, but given that they're non-recurring in nature. However, with the updated revenue projections that we got, these expenses can now be absorbed within the operating budget without relying on one-time reserves, making it appropriate to restore them, and then we're going to just move to dismiss Article 8 to fund these elections at town meeting. So in closing, the net effect of the changes presented to you tonight has a net zero impact on the overall budget, and the budget we will submit to town meeting is in fact balanced as required by law. As mentioned, there will be just the one budget that we're presenting to voters to consider, and no additional funds from either of the failed override questions are included in this budget. Looking to the future, we are still committed to providing core services, and it is difficult to maintain them without an override, given the cost pressures we've experienced. It's been 20 years now without an operating override in Easton. So many other communities have gone for more frequently. I can think of the town of Arlington pops up in my head. They go for one every 3 to 5 years, which is a lot, but going 20 years is quite the period of time. This is going to continue to put strain on our ability to be able to recruit and retain town staff, particularly in our labor-intensive departments like police, fire, and DPW. With limited resources, which does pose a threat to employee morale and the ability to be able to deliver services. This is a slide that I shared last time. We've gone through a couple of the milestones, having had the budget hearings and the annual town election. The next big date that's coming up is annual town meeting on May 18th. And the email that Wendy had sent out earlier had links to all those that are on the right-hand side here with our FY27 budget, information about the override, which is no longer relevant, and then our town meeting warrant and other information about town meeting is available at that link as well. With that,
Thank you, Sean. Can we raise hands again, just because we have a passionate group tonight and I love it. So I just want to make sure that things move efficiently. So if you have a question, raise your hand. Matt?
Yeah, thanks. I don't have a question as much as what you presented, as much as I do around just our fiscal responsibilities. So do we audit these the different departments in this budget that's laid out? Some of them, like the school, gets 50 million. Some of these are extensive, are large numbers. And do we go in and audit to see if they've spent that funding, and if they have not, what are they doing with it?
Yeah, the money, that's a good question, Matt. The money that is left over from a departmental budget is, if you're familiar with the term free cash, which is just a terrible term because it doesn't give the right connotation to it, but it is anything that is projected for revenue that is above the mark that was set in the budget, as well as any unspent funds are turned over at the end of the year to what is called free cash. And that is our free cash balance that we roll over and is certified every year in the fall from the prior fiscal year. But we do, and we are also required to audit. Every year we have to do a fiscal year audit as required by law. Sorry, were you going to say something?
Yeah, so that didn't completely answer my question. So I understand that we where the money goes. Thank you for answering that part. But do we audit the different departments to see how they're spending their cash, especially
Your question is whether or not the finance committee audit, because we do have an independent auditor, or do you mean does the finance committee go through?
No, I just am wondering if we are audited, and what that audit looks like. So I love the school system. That's actually why I joined it. But they have $50 million. How are they spending it? Are they misappropriating their funds? I don't believe that they are. But I just, when we audit them, do we actually look at what the different departments are actually spending their money on, and does that stack up?
I'm wondering if you're referencing the audit that has been, the school department is currently undergoing an audit at this exact moment, a management audit.
Okay.
Which I'm sure is a hot topic in town, but they're currently undergoing that audit. But they are required by law to. So same with the town. Our audited financials are also available online. We have to do that each fiscal year.
So let me jump in here, Sean and Liz. I'm not trying to cut off other people who are talking, but to answer Matt's question, can you guys comment? And in fairness, this may be another Wendy question, but the essence of what I think you're asking, Matt, is fundamentally, what are the management controls that we have in place to be confident that where we've appropriated funds for a specific purpose, that's what they're the money gets spent on, et cetera. And I'm calling this out because we have good controls by and large in town, as good as can be, expected with a $120 million budget, right? Um, but I think that might help in a very general sense if we could just comment on that, because I know where you're coming from, but every time somebody brings up quote unquote an audit, I'm sorry, I'm losing light in my office, so I'm like darkened all of a sudden. But whenever somebody brings up quote unquote an audit, um, it's one of those words that ends up meaning very different things to different people, and will get derailed real quick going down that path. So just my suggestion on answering that.
Mike, I also want to piggyback on that. We do have the process, I presume we still have this process, of all of us take certain budgets and what you eating there, bud? All of us take certain budgets and essentially go through with the administrator or the lead of that department and kind of talk through the budget every fiscal year. So we do have some, I guess the initial answer to your question is internally, that's what we have. Townwide, there are other things, but internally, that's what we have.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, those are very different things, right? So having a citizen look at a budget is not quite the same as a certified auditor, but we do both. Sean, did you want to talk a little bit more about the checks and balances, or?
Yeah,
I know you're relatively new, otherwise I would have thrown that to you, but.
I mean, I guess Liz could also speak because every town is required. So Liz, I'm not sure if you want to speak to it. I don't want to step on your toe.
No, it's required in every municipality. So there's an in-depth audit conducted by a private independent auditing firm. And those results are always made public. There are other checks and balances that exist on kind of a larger scale level with the Department of Revenue. There are different checks, forms that are filled out electronically. Everything needs to balance out and tie together in terms of setting the tax rate, for example. There's a recap sheet that's filled out annually. So DOR also has a watch over some aspects of it. I wouldn't say all, but some of the different categories. And then on a more granular level, internally, there are checks and balances that exist with who can sign off on different contracts at varying amounts. Like contracts, I believe in Easton, contracts over 25,000. I couldn't just sign off on those. Those also require like a sign off from the select board. You're required by law, like you have to adhere to the appropriations from town meeting. You'd be in violation of the law if somebody, like you're not allowed to deficit spend unless it's in certain cases, like snow and ice is one of those allowable areas that you can deficit spend. So those are just some of the many checks and balances. Also having comprehensive software that's managed. I mean, I could go on. It's depending on how granular you want it to get.
In like the case of schools, like you brought up the example of schools, the school committee has to vote on a lot of spending. So
Correct. The school committee needs to vote on everything, and they're, as Sean mentioned, currently undergoing a management audit. My understanding is that they have a new finance director there, or fairly new. So he's going to bring in a fresh set of eyes and a new perspective, and sometimes that's a good thing to take a look at everything. But they're currently undergoing an audit right now.
We have a new superintendent coming in too, so I think that's a good way to start out, is really having it, all of that looked through. Jeremy, you were next.
Hi, sorry y'all, couldn't unmute myself. I believe it was Sean was showing the slide. If you don't mind, also thank you to all of you, to Kelly, to Sean, to Liz, everybody for doing this. The slide about the projected, or I believe it was overruns, and then how we're going to adjust for those. I think it was like the second or third slide. Was just curious on the total numbers there. I added up to 134.3 thousand. but I didn't see that total anywhere in the slide deck. So I'm just curious if I can get confirmation that that's the total number.
Sure. Let me just pull up the slide
Yeah.
that you're talking about so I can make sure we're not on two different.
It was like that third slide where I needed to just be patient and listen to your presentation.
No. Okay. This one.
Perfect. Yep. 30. Okay.
Oh, sorry. When I went to presentation mode.
I do it every day. Okay. So, oh, I was way off then. I totally misread your number. 308 90. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm yelling at my kids in the background. Arthur, your turn.
This is such a nominal part of the budget, but it is directly relevant to us, so I'll ask it. We, as a committee, get a portion $2,000. Why?
That's, oh, sorry, bud.
Discretionary funds.
You're not getting your paycheck?
Yeah,
You guys are getting paid?
You guys are 12 months
for-
under years.
That's for somebody to take notes for us.
Okay. So the only reason, and again, such a nominal part of the budget. How much of that 2K do we spend every year?
I'd have to go back and look and see, but I know that we pay our recording secretary at least a handful of times throughout the year. I'd have to go back and look at the specific number year over year.
I'm a pretty big stickler, and that's never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
In terms of not using that money, so.
I do think there's been a time where I did vote to have some of it transferred to free cash, but not every time, so not every year.
It has to be a pretty rough budget year for us to need the $2,000.
Yeah, no, like I again, it's a very, very nominal part of the budget. Like I just saw it, and you know, like if there was room for us to like reduce, I mean, obviously we need to pay our people, like to be clear. But if there's room to reduce it, I didn't know if that was a conversation that could be had, just given the position that some of the departments are in. It's a nominal. It would be a very, very small drop in the bucket, but
I could buy some pens for the year.
The FY20, just for in looking at the budget summary, the FY24 budget was $2,000 and the FY24 actual was $1,200.
okay, so we do spend a not insignificant part of that, I guess.
No. But to your point and to Steve's point that was made earlier, asking these questions are a good thing. So I appreciate all of the questions. It's good to be pressure testing, and I just wanted to make that known.
And that money rolls into the free cash we were talking about earlier if we don't use it. So it's not that we're burning at $2,000 if we don't use it. It'll go to somebody somewhere.
Correct. And some years I'm sure it is used in its entirety, and then other years there might be a small remaining balance.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think my thing was if there's some department that like $500 could have meant something to them. Like I didn't know if that was some like a place where we can like get it.
Sure.
Steve?
I just want to comment, I think to Matt's point around the school budget, because everyone hears stuff in the town, right? And a number of comments I heard, right or wrong, was, oh, well, they found $1.4 million in the school budget. They didn't budget right. They didn't do X right. They didn't do Y right. Again, I'm guessing, Matt, that might be something that you were alluding to around that. Just throwing it out there.
No, I just from our last meeting, that's not what I was alluding to, but
My bad.
yeah, it's okay though. But thank you for bringing that up, and I just wanted to also thank everyone here. You guys are doing a great job. So please don't take any of these questions as any criticism at all. But I was more just concerned about how with the override we're giving these departments money, and what's to say that they're spending it? What's to say that they are asking for excess of what they have? I'm not saying that anyone's doing that, but just people are people, and I just wanted to know what the safeguards were around that. And it sounds like we have them all in place.
Yeah, Matt,
Again, fair question. So thank you for asking.
And the reason why I chose the school is because the presentation that we were given in a few weeks ago or a month ago, they said that they were the #1 test scores in the county, and they are some of the least funded per student in the county or in the area. So, especially for town sizes, they presented, I don't know if it was 10 plus towns, but we were one up from the last for spending per student. And so I think that we should give them more money, but it's not me to say. But I think that the school was a good example because they're handling their money very well, and we actually give them a lot of money, but I think that they're handling it really well. I just deliberately chose them because they're an example of someone who is not nefarious or doing something wrong with their finances. They're actually doing it very well.
yeah, Matt, if I may, the the questions you're posing are they're great questions. They really are, and from my perspective, I mean, like I said, I've been kicking around this committee for a while. It is literally our job to ask the questions on behalf of the community to make sure that this is understood and well represented, and you know, we're sort of a link in the chain to make sure that you know, everything is hunky dory for lack of a better word. Um, there's another aspect, and it may be something we want to take offline, but is worth getting into, which is the process that Sean and Wendy and when Connor was still here, what they've been doing for the last 5-6 months of iterating through these budgets down to sort of every dollar. They start with where we think and these are the budget memos that came out, some of them before you were here, but it happens sort of in a cadence, if you will, every year, where these budgets come out, and there are best faith efforts to estimate what we think we're going to have for revenues, and where we think we're going to be able to, based on that, where we think we're going to be able to spend money and what the implications are. And like most budgeting processes, they start off with, you know, some element of ambition and wish list, but by law, we whittle them down to the point where they are balanced, where the amount of money we believe is going to come in matches the amount of money that we plan to spend, and then through the management control processes that we talked about before, we make sure that that's where the money actually gets spent. To where Steve was raising the question about schools before and where he was coming from, I'm not sure if you had heard of this one, but there was a major accounting error. An error is not the first word that comes to mind for what occurred, which essentially meant that the school committee found money, and it's one of those accounting things where somebody just did a bad job accounting, made an error, and a sizable amount of money that had previously been allocated wasn't spent and wasn't, so it ended up looking like found money. And I'm only calling that out there just to sort of fill in the blank. I know we have a lot of sort of new faces and people coming in, and poor Liz was like, "Oh my God, Mike, you said this was a fun committee. What the hell's with you guys? Are spicy." But I'm sort of saying all these things and jumping in to try and paint the picture that there is a rhyme or reason to all of this. And to encourage you, keep asking those questions. And if any of us tell you to hush, it's probably just because it's been asked and answered 10 times before, and we could take it offline. But
I would
no,
also
seriously, keep it up.
like to add, Mike, that there are going to be some accounting differences when you have a budget this large. Like, you would expect for a school of 50 million to maybe have a $600,000 sort of, you know, difference. 1.7 is, or 1.4 is very, very large. But it is also a year where we made a lot of cuts. There were a lot of people unexpectedly leaving, so you would expect it to be more than the typical year.
Yeah, well said. Sorry, I didn't mean to get on a soapbox and pontificate.
I mean, it's
I'll be
always good to
quiet
go
here.
through the process, especially when we have new members of the committee. So there's also subcommittees to the finance committee. So, Matt, it might be good for you to start on the audit committee, where you work with and go through previous years to look at, the audits there. So
I was not aware of that.
yeah.
There are subcommittees to the finance committee?
Well,
Oh, yeah.
it's a little different than that. There are other standalone committees of which there are members of the finance committee that are representative to.
More
Oh,
correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe subcommittee is not the right word. All right.
Yeah, I would love to be involved in more of those things. And the audit one is so it would be great. How do I get
That's
involved
where I
in it?
started, and I thought it was a great place to start. And then I moved to the budget committee. So I think,
All the cool kids are on budget.
around, yeah,
Oh, you guys are on budget?
Mike and I, yeah.
I had capital last year.
You had capital last year.
Did
How do we decide what subcommittees we join? Do we just
So Shireen
know.
will get the list, and then we'll kind of all like ask, say what we're interested in, and then if there's more than one person interested, we can duke it out. Or there's
Then
some,
there's the Jello wrestling.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's
That's just Mike and I, though.
wrestling?
Mike and I are lucky though. We both got to be on the same committee, so sometimes that happens too. But Jeremy, did you have a question?
I'm gonna pass on the Jeremy Mike Jello wrestling event.
That's actually, we're gonna fund the deficit this year by selling tickets to it. I hope that's fine with y'all. I just wanted to say, not to harp on the school thing at all, but if Connor Reed were here, he would say one-time money for one-time expenses and recurring money for recurring expenses. So this quote unquote found 1 point whatever, it was going to disappear next year anyway. So let's not act like we've somehow grown the budget by 1.2, 1.4. It's a one-time money. The cuts we made this year would have happened next year. So we shouldn't lose $1 million. I'm not saying that, but just contextualizing the revenues and expenditures.
And another point, just for new committee members that are on that haven't been through the process before, the school department is the school committee formulates the school department's budget, and that is legally voted on by the school committee, and they submit that to the town. So that we don't, the select board and the town administration don't have control over the school department's budget, which is an important distinguish. An important piece that I think people lose in translation and assume that it's, although it is one budget that we're voting on, as the town administrator or deputy town administrator or the select board, we don't have control over how they spend that money.
Thank you for pointing that out, Sean. That's important.
And you want to give, I mean, if you're hiring someone into the position of superintendent, you want to trust them and you want them to be able to do what they need to do. And if they're not doing the job, then the school committee removes them. That's the process. Matt, I think you had your hand up first.
Thanks. So in Article 3, we say that the select board, each member gets 1,800. But then in the budget, we're giving the select board $468,000. How does that?
That's a good point. That the select board's budget does include the town administrator's office. That's inclusive of my salary, the town administrator's salary, our executive assistant, our training and expenses. So it's the town administrator and select board's budget. So not the select board is getting paid $1,800 a year, but that of course doesn't add up times 5, does not equal $468,000.
Right.
I asked Wendy that same exact question earlier today via email.
That's a good question, and honestly, cause for us to, maybe we need to put select board / town administrator's budget, so it's more clear that those that's what it's inclusive of.
Thank you, Sean. Arthur?
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of piggyback, I think swing off what you said, Kelly, and just that, obviously, there are going to be gaps in budgets no matter what. I think, and I don't think I'm saying anything that anybody here disagrees with, and I don't think it should be construed as an attack on anybody. I think I think when we go to town, and we ask for, like, obviously, no matter what we do with the budget, we have to go to the town, um, meeting the townspeople and approve it. And I think what I think is the general consensus is that we have an expectation of our departments that, we we have numbers reporting that are reasonably accurate. Obviously, again, there will be some minor discrepancies. Um, so I think, like, just to kind of communicate, I think what we all kind of understand that we take as a committee, I think that very seriously, and that um, it's something that I think we're very mindful of. And I think to the point, I think we have, a group of, administrators who do take that role very seriously, and um, if they didn't, then I think that's a different conversation to have. But I think we have administrators who do take that responsibility very seriously, and it's I think I want to push back on kind of the narrative that there is, you know, somewhere in town hall is like a secret hidden bunker of like cash that we were just not touching, where we haven't budgeted appropriately for it. Like that doesn't exist. Um, and I think that our administrators are taking very seriously the importance of, making sure their budgets are correct. You know, I think we're all. I think I was personally like a little frustrated by what happened with schools. I think to Jeremy's point, that's I think a one-off thing, and it probably wouldn't matter in the long run. But I think it's something that administrators are taking seriously, and I do think anybody who's listening to this needs to understand that there is not the discrepancies I think people kind of have the idea that are out there. And then they need to take that into consideration when they view this budget. And frankly, um, you know, if it was just a matter of like us misappropriating the funding, it wouldn't be a cascading problem throughout the state. Because not every if it was a problem that for Easton, it wouldn't we wouldn't have a significant portion of the 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth going for an override. So I think that's just kind of my 2 cents.
Thank you for sharing, Arthur. I was actually back in Detroit a lot the past couple months because my father passed away, and their roads are terrible in Michigan. And I remember asking my mom how much she pays in taxes on her, house that's worth 200,000, and she pays 5,000 a year. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, everyone calls us Massachusetts, but like, we have the best healthcare, we have the best school system, we have amazing roads. Like, how are you paying that much in taxes and you don't have any of that? So I mean, for the value of our house, like compared to out there, like we are winning. So, Matt, you had your hand up.
Yeah, how much debt do we have? So it's there's a line for maturing debt and interest, and we're paying 12 million to handle that.
Yeah.
I was just curious, how much debt do we actually have?
So debt's really important to our credit rating, and we have to have a good credit rating if we want to be able to do any like capital planning. So I can let Sean and Liz explain that a little bit better, but we have to have debt, otherwise that will hurt us.
Right, and there's the exempt debt and non-exempt debt. So exempt debt would be the building project. It's excluded out of the tax levy, so it is not included in the 2.5%. Like that is separate and apart, and it is time limited. So in this case, 30 years for the public safety building project. But we also have repairs to OA, the Blanche Ames project. There are other projects that are excluded from the tax levy, and then we have things that we pay within the tax levy, which is non-exempt debt. And so in the budget summary that was included in the packet, it breaks each of those out line by line. You'll see on the second page, it says there's a line for non-exempt debt and exempt debt. if that answers your question.
It does not. So I was just I, I'm not an accountant. I work in a laboratory. I work in the pharmaceutical industry in the quality control lab. I don't understand all of the requirements to get credit by having debt, but I was just curious, how much debt do we have? Like that's
So
$12 million for me when I'm paying my student loans. I'm paying 500 bucks, but how much debt do we have for $12 million a year?
Sean, does Wendy put together like a debt schedule? Is that a document that exists that maybe we could forward to the finance committee? That's probably something that I should access as well at some point.
Yeah, she keeps track of all of our non-exempt and exempt debt projects,
Okay.
and that's how she calculates the 12,274,580 that you see in the budget.
Yeah,
So we could have that sent out to all of you so that you could see exactly what we're
How much
paying.
is left on which project, and
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I'm not gonna recommend. I'm just curious.
sure.
I'm just terribly curious.
I'm
I see
taking
that
notes as
number.
I go of the things that we could, because some of this is just existing information that we can aggregate for you and help answer a lot of your questions and let you show like the really weedy in the fine and gritty details. And I'll add that to the list.
Thank you so
Like,
much.
was that sent out recently to the finance committee? I feel like I've seen that recently.
It exists. I haven't seen the latest recently, but it exists. I mean, it's just basic accounting.
Also, to I believe it was Matt's point on how much, or question on how much debt we have. The new school alone was 9 figures, I believe. I believe that was just north of 100 mil. So a $12 million deficit isn't, or a $12 million debt payment isn't insane. With my rough calculation of, I think we're still paying off OA from 20 years ago. We have the new school, we have all this stuff. So
So I
to
think
try to roughly answer your question of, we're north of 9 figures.
we're almost done with OA. I think that's coming off. Like,
I think something in that realm.
Steve, you got a question?
Yeah, one of the questions that I hear again within the town is, we're building all these buildings, DPW, fire, police, so on and so forth, new schools, but nothing's been shared around what are we doing with the existing properties? Because those are worth significant money from a real estate perspective. When we talk about overrides and funding the overrides, maybe it's apples and oranges, but that would go a long way to fund what we're asking the taxpayers to pay out of pocket.
Well,
So
those will be one time. Those will be one-time money, right? So you can't really pick up new staff with one-time money because those are going to be recurring expenses. But to your point, I'm sure, Sean, you can share some updates on
Sure.
those.
So we won a state grant last year and were able to do a surplus property review. And I actually am making a note to send that out to you as well. We looked at 3 properties in town that are going to be coming offline when the new projects come on. And there were multiple presentations to the select board. And so a report is available for you to be able to digest and see. And there was public feedback that was included in that report to show what folks would like to see those properties be used for in the future. So as those departments are vacating those buildings and going to the new ones, that's when those more robust conversations around what to use those properties for will start coming into more public play outside of this report that was issued last year.
Steve, were you talking about the middle school?
Well, no, it's like the elementary
Okay.
schools, the police, the existing police department, the existing fire department, the
Or
existing
center school? Yeah.
DPW buildings that, we built new buildings and those have become vacant. And I understand it's one time, but it's still a significant amount of money. For the town.
they definitely are. And one thing to bear in mind is with a lot of these, there has been extensive public discussion about them. Like take center school, for example. It was widely debated at a town meeting, and the decision was made to dispose of it as a what do we call it? Community place someone was going to buy
Public
it.
resource of sorts.
That felt.
Yeah, I can't remember what we called it. Similarly with
Yeah.
Moreau Hall, there was how we're going to dispose of that. And it's been built into, so whenever there's been overrides and for things like the new public works and fire, police station, so on and so forth, these considerations have been built in there. I'm not saying every single, that the final disposition of everything is determined. That's not the case in many instances. But by and large, I think what tends to happen is that when these decisions get made to change how something is used or to build a new building or something like that, a tremendous effort goes into all the associated questions, but sort of once the decisions are made and we move forward, one of the challenges you have is a year or two later, or like we're talking about Bland James, which has been around now for 2 years, and the decision was made 3 years before that. So we're 5 years out from those discussions, right? We're at the point now where people start to go, well, goodness, how come nobody ever figured out what we're doing with Center School, or something like that? So, and I'm not calling anybody out on that. I'm saying that it's sort of institutional knowledge that starts to fade after a little while, and when people are frustrated and stressed about economic situations, you know, if you don't know the information, you're going to jump on it and you're going to start sort of shouting about it. But don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking the question. We should keep knocking it. I'm just saying I have forgotten many of what we decided to do. So if you ask me, I'm probably just going to shrug my shoulders. But I do recall the specific debates on many of these over the last number of years. So I don't know if that helps you help sort of make sense of it. It's a legitimate question, just can be tough to pin down real time. A suggestion I want to make. We run the risk of being here a very, very long time. Having what I'm actually enjoying the conversation, but we get kind of into a tough place where fundamentally what we need to do is decide as a committee whether we're going to recommend or not recommend a given article, kind of as it is. We don't have any remit to change an article. A lot of times some of these, we get influenced with the different ways we interact with folks in the town, but at this stage, mostly what we're doing is saying this budget as is that's been prepared, do we as a committee recommend that our townsfolk vote for it, basically, when we all get together at town meeting? Or as a committee, do we say, no, our finance committee suggests everybody doesn't vote for it? But that's fundamentally what we're doing here. And again, having been on a number of these over the years, we'll be here very late if we get too far off of that.
Thank you, Mike. So with that being said, any more questions? No? Then can I get a motion?
Move to recommend.
Move to recommend. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Is someone writing down the names? Because am I supposed to be writing them down?
You don't need to write them down, but you'll need to go through and just
You have to do a roll call.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll have to do a roll call. But can I get who made the motion?
I made the motion, Arthur Balin.
Okay. And who second?
We all seconded.
I'll just put you down, Matt, since you spoke. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So
My first second.
we'll do a roll call vote, and I'll start with Jeremy.
Yes. Or do we do ayes or yeses here?
Usually I do Lamb, yes. I say my name.
Oh, Tamelio, yes.
Matt,
Barrowman, yes.
Arthur,
Balin, yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Steve,
Cop, yes.
Lamb, yes. So that motion is to recommend Article 5, right? 6. Motion to recommend Article 6. Okay. All right. Now we can move on to Article 7. Let me share my screen again. Okay. So the next article, Article 7 for fiscal year 2027 capital budget. This article is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate by borrowing or appropriate by transfer from available funds, a sum of money for the purpose of meeting the capital budget needs of the town for the fiscal year 2027, or to take any other action relative thereto. So you can see the numbers here. The explanation of this article is, this is the annual capital budget for the town. Funding sources are available funds and long-term borrowing. A 2/3 majority vote is required for borrowing authorizations. All budget documents and details are available at this website. So Liz, are you giving anything?
Yes, I can go through this. So these items were all ranked by the Capital Planning Committee. There were several requests examined by that committee that were actually deferred to the fall due to financial constraints based on the level of need, and with the thought that that committee could reassess some of those in the fall once free cash gets certified. This capital budget represents a very measured approach to addressing the town's most pressing capital needs while being fiscally responsible and considering future needs of the town. So to run through each one, the fire and rescue breathing air pack replacement, their breathing apparatus is old, becoming outdated, and that is actually proposed to be funded via some residual funds that are left in the ambulance fund, since that is no longer. So that seemed like very appropriate allocation of those residual funds in that account. The police cruisers, they're looking for 3 cruisers. This follows along with their long-standing fleet replacement program. And last year, the town opted not to adhere to the vehicle replacement schedule due to funding issues. So this year, it's very important to them that the town get back onto that maintenance schedule. The deferred maintenance always ends up costing more. The 3 new cruisers will replace 3 old ones that have very high mileage on them. Then we have the IT battery backup unit. Wendy did receive a quote from that, just in case there's anybody on the committee who maybe isn't that familiar with IT equipment of this nature, if that sounds like a lot of money. They did go out and obtain quotes. So that is what it costs for this. And the battery backup, from my understanding, is imperative to preserving data and maintaining the status quo with the town's IT needs. The 4th item, ADA transition. This is for the Department of Public Works. Many DPW projects require extra ADA compliance components to them. Just as an example, if they're doing roadway work, they may need to go in and grade the area going down to the crosswalk in a certain manner. So small improvements like that are proposed to be funded from here. And actually, let me just back up for a second. On the police cruisers, that's going to be funded through, there's $20,599 in an older vehicle appropriation that's already on the books. And then the remaining cost for those is slated to come from free cash. And then the IT battery backup unit, that's slated to come from free cash, as well as those ADA, the ADA transition project. And then moving on to the enterprise fund side of things, the water main replacement, that project is with for borrowing. So we would be borrowing for that. Leak detection system, wells and treatment pump maintenance and repairs, um, installing gate valves at Washington and Maine, and the purchase of a new excavator for the Department of Public Works. These are all DPW and Water Department type items, and we would be borrowing for those items.
Any questions? Jeremy?
Yeah, on the police cruiser one, and I know the first thing everyone wants me to talk about is police cruisers for the OGs here. We have 3 cruisers at 222, which feels a little cheap per cruiser. So we're at 202 after we have that $20,000 rollover. So we're at roughly 200 free cash for 3 cruisers. I guess my first question is, any better way to spend 200,000? And then my second question being, how far behind are we on this maintenance plan? Because this comes up every year, and everyone wants a new thing every year. So I don't.
There's 23 police vehicles,
and
so they try to do a few at a time and spread it out years. So last year, my understanding was there was one that was done last year.
Correct.
So we have 1 rollover essentially and 2 new this year, for 3 total.
No, there was
there's 3 new for
rollovers.
this year. Last year they needed 3 new ones and they only got 1. So there's still going to be like 2 down.
Yeah, they're behind.
Okay, so 2 from previous years.
That they're behind. Yeah.
Had we fully funded this last year, what would the number have been this year? Would it have been 3 still?
Yeah, it's 3 every year.
It still would have been 3.
It's 3 every year.
Yes.
Okay, so we are down 2. Essentially,
we'll be down 2 even if we do the 3 this year. And
we'll forever be down
also,
2 until we fund that.
Yes.
If anyone has specific questions too regarding the fleet, I got very specific numbers from Chief Boone. So they currently have 9 marked vehicles that are specifically just patrol. They have 2 school resource officer vehicles, 5 unmarked, and 1 for the animal control officer. And then they have 2 that are much older that they really only use for like details and training, things like that, because they don't want to take some of the newer ones, like take those out of service for those other kind of side needs. When they do take vehicles on details, that's a money-making operation. They charge a fee and it goes into a revolving fund. As far as that goes. And then they also have 2 motorcycles.
So total number of vehicles you said was 20 and change?
So there's 19 cars and two motorcycles. And I think when Wendy had provided the number of 23, I believe she was also including, I believe that they have an ATV. She was looking at like the totality of all of their vehicles, but in terms of actual cruisers, there are 17 in service and then 2 that are used just for details, training, that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you very much. My initial reaction there is 19 vehicles, we're doing 3 a year, you're getting a new vehicle every 6 years, it must be a nice life. So that's my initial thought.
Your life is driving though, right? Keep that
right.
Have a company.
Yeah. Like their office is in the vehicle, so to speak.
I commuted 3 hours to Cambridge on a 2016 Camry to this day. So.
Yeah, but you're not chasing after bad guys when you do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not life-threatening situation. Well, I don't know. Sometimes driving on 24 is life-threatening. So.
It's Easton. I think they'll be okay.
Arthur, do you have a question?
Yeah, well, first of all, just to respond to that, like we had several high-profile incidents where our town police force teamed up in a multi-jurisdictional task force to investigate crimes that have gone over several. So I think just saying, hey, this is Easton is probably selling the work they do a little short. The question I had I know there's a neighboring town that has had problems with their water. Like I think it was Bridgewater. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I know that they had to work with Middleborough to, and it's a whole thing. How close are we to like a situation like that? I mean, obviously we want to not get anywhere close to that, but
My understanding is that we're not anywhere near a situation like that, but I think that might be a question better answered offline by DPW Director David Field. I think he could give you a lot more specific information about the town's water system and where we stand with supply and demand.
He could give you more information, but on a high level, the town has spent millions of dollars to put into PFAS treatment both at Red Mill Road, and we have multiple facilities that are off of 138 for the other wells that are on the south part of town. So we are significantly ahead of the curve compared to other communities that have not taken the time to be able to invest in that type of infrastructure. And then that's why you see Duxbury spending $70 million on what we spent 12 on comparatively. So Easton, having worked in other municipalities, Easton is ahead of the curve, particularly when it comes to water. And Connor Reed is like the preeminent authority on PFAS water treatment in the state. So Easton is in good standing as it relates to water.
And and just to your point about the cost of that, like Connor being early on this has saved the town millions of dollars. Same with building Blanche Ames and taking advantage of that, not just taking advantage of that grant, but the cost of building after COVID. Like, so, I mean, doing this stuff in an appropriate time really saves the town money in the long run. Even though it stinks, it always stinks no matter what to spend that amount of money at once. You want to do it, in a way that you can take advantage of grants like we did with Blanche Ames, or be an early adopter, so that we're not, spending money the way Duxbury is spending. I mean, $70 million, that's a lot of money. Arthur, did you have more you want to say? I see your hand still up.
oh no, I forgot to lower. I mean, I'll just say that, I mean, something as fundamental as water is something we should be very cautious about, and seems like money well spent, personally. But
Matt?
Yeah, just on the water, my question is about the fire and rescue breathing and air pack replacement. But before I get to that, I just want to say, I love the Easton water, but I did put in a whole house water filter for my house, and it tastes great with a filter in. And we don't have any pressure, so I have a pressurizer in my basement to pressurize our water, and that kicks on when we use multiple faucets. But if you're only using one faucet, it doesn't kick on, and the pressure from our town is terrible. Like I, I'm going to invest in a better pressurizer for the water in my house, because our water pressure is really bad. So let's get that water main replaced, and I just want more. I want more water coming into my home. That aside, I wasn't going to talk about that, but when we talk about the water in this city or in the town, I don't like the way that the water pressure is at all. But that aside, the fire and rescue breathing air pack replacement, what is that? I don't want to get take away from the meeting because it's less than $1 million,
It's
but that's a lot. I Googled it, and those are $7,000 to $10,000 each. What is this?
It's all of the breathing apparatus that they utilize, and
How many?
all of that inventory, my understanding is it's aged out essentially.
So even with getting like all the other things involved, like the canister refillers, which you can take them to a scuba door, you don't have to fill them up yourself. But even if you were to buy all of the supportive equipment, it's less than 150. I mean that apparatus to refill the canisters, which is you don't need to do, but if you're going to refill your own canisters, That's $120,000. So I'm just, again, I don't want to take away because it's not that much money, but what is this?
I mean, each person gets their own set of this gear issued to them.
Okay, that's what I want
So
to know. Okay.
it's not like they have a few sets and they use it when they're working. Like it's assigned to a specific person. And it's everything involving like my understanding is like the part that goes like over your face,
Yes, yes,
that
yeah.
tubing and everything. I'm sorry, I don't know the technical word for the tubing that
I don't know the
connects
technical word
everything.
either. I'm just looking to like, is
But
it
it's individual to the person, which is why retention is so important because when you have some of this gear that can't really be adequately cleaned or repurposed and it has a short shelf life to begin with, um, if you have a new person start working for you and then they leave and go work for another town, somebody new coming in to replace them needs a whole new set of gear. So it adds up. It gets very expensive. But I mean, it's their breathing apparatus. You want it to be functioning in the way that it needs to, and to be new enough to be in compliance.
Thank you for explaining that, Liz. Steve?
Yeah, I'm actually surprised on the breathing pack that they didn't say like, oh, we're going to do this every split out in thirds, right? And so do a third this year, a third next year, a third the year after. It seems like what just Liz just said. It's replace everything all at once, which most businesses don't do. They spread it out. I don't have a problem with the police cruisers. That basically says we replace them every 7 years, um, which on a police car they get beat to hell. My question is more around $200,000 for an excavator. Is that a new excavator? Is it a replacement of existing? What is that? What is that? The 200,000.
I'm looking to see if I have my copy of the original capital plan. Sean, do you have that electronically? I'm wondering if there's more info in there.
Yeah, it's the purchase of a 308 class or rubber tire excavator um, with a backhoe configuration. It doesn't say the date, the year on it, but I presume it to be new. Let's see.
They had requested other important equipment for public works as well, and some of those items were deferred by the capital planning committee. So this, obviously, I'm very new here, but my understanding is that the items that made it to the warrant were well vetted by the capital planning committee and that they definitely rose to the level of need that they were brought forward for this town meeting.
Yeah, I
On
didn't
top
know
of
if it
what
was
Liz just said.
net
Sorry,
new
Steve.
or replacement. You know.
I just want to say on top of that, the capital planning, I don't know the exact number, but there's millions of dollars every year in capital planning expenses that it's just a backlog that we don't fund, assuming nobody in the town ran into a few $1,000,000 since I've last been on the committee. So these are, I'm sure these sat on this committee or in this budget request for years and were well vetted, like Liz said.
And
Yeah,
it is also, too, it should be mentioned that the capital plan is a 5-year plan. So as Jeremy pointed out, these items or several of them were likely in the queue for a while. And if you look at the capital plan, which it may have been in your packet, or if it's not, we can send that to you tomorrow as well. But it maps out for each fiscal year for the next 5 years what the priorities are. And then there's a bunch of items on the plan that aren't even ranked yet, like aren't even programmed in for a year, to Jeremy's point. And but they still do the work every year. The capital planning committee takes a fresh look at everything. And the reason, again, for deferring until the fall, they'll take another look then because at that point, free cash will be certified. And you don't always know. The needs of the town may have changed. The needs of the departments may have changed, so they'll take a fresh look at it then.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I can speak for the whole Committee. But Sean, these things are amortized over different periods of time, 3 years, 5 years, maybe even longer. I think it might be helpful for this committee to see what is the budget impact to be able to fund this. So we may spend 2.5 million, but the impact to the budget might be 300,000, or 500,000, whatever it is, over the course of whatever the amortization schedule is.
And to be clear, this money will be spent on something. We will just go lower down the list on
hit the budget over the years.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, is it taken from a fund or is it borrowing? I mean,
there are different funding sources. Some of it's paid for from free cash. So to Steve's point that it's the 2.4 million, not all of that is borrowing. Some of it's free cash, some of it's prior appropriations.
Right. So the 383,150, that's residual money in the ambulance fund. We no longer operate our own ambulance, so that's how those funds are proposed to be reallocated. And I'm just looking, so let me just take a peek at this.
Liz, while you're looking that up, something I'll just add that doesn't come out in this discussion necessarily, but it's come up many times in the past. Dave Fields who runs DPW has some really good data-based schedules for things like how long to keep around cruisers, what the right amortizations, sorry, not amortization, what the right depreciation schedules are for these. And there's actually a rigorous process that he goes through when it comes to things like shopping for an excavator. I think you're absolutely asking the right question on that. I'd probably jump on and ask it with you. I've had him explain and walk us through sort of what the decision process is on sort of what to spend, how they get quotes, how the process behind that's pretty robust. I just wanted to throw it out there. If it makes things make more sense. And Liz, I assume you found what you found, but we may also, I'm not sure if everyone knows the difference between capital budget and our operating budget and how never the twain shall meet. Just as we're thinking about where money could be spent one place versus another, the capital budget exists independent of the operational budget.
Thank you for that. That was helpful. So to go back to the prior question, we went over the fire department self-contained breathing apparatus and how that's being funded through ambulance. The 3 police cruisers, $20,599 coming from an old appropriation that's still on the books, and then the remainder from free cash. And then IT battery backup unit and the ADA funds, both slated to come from free cash. And then the items on the enterprise under that category are all proposed for borrowing.
Liz, if I, or actually, or Kelly, if I could share my screen in the memo that we sent out the other day, there is it just to make it. I'm more of a visual person, so for me, you can see what. So these are we're using one-time funds here for the general fund items, and then the water enterprise. You can see the project bonding impact over the next couple of years. To which point I think was what Steve was asking earlier.
Steve, does that answer your questions?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, Jeremy, you're next.
Hey y'all, on the fire and rescue breathing apparatus replacements, how many are those?
Yes.
Because I'm one, not going to vote to recommend if we're not getting a number, and 2, I'm not sure we can legally vote to recommend without getting a number. So we have 3 police cruisers and an unidentified number of rescue apparati. Not sure on the plural.
In the
Apparatus.
capital plan,
Mhm.
if we can pull that up, maybe it's there specifically. I
Agreed, I
understand
just
what you're
also believe it
asking,
needs
like
to
how
be in
many
the,
sets of this gear.
yeah, what am I getting out of this?
I mean,
It does not break it down in the plan, but that was their first priority. So my assumption is that Chief Alexander at some point in time, obviously, went before the capital planning committee and advocated for this.
Did you?
Okay, I will be voting to not recommend until we get that number.
I would second that. I would second that because just doing a really cursory look online, they don't cost that much. In other towns that have passed, I read two articles of two different towns in LA and Salisbury, and they didn't cost that much. The LA was paying $12,000 per unit, and they listed that they bought 2,500 different units
Mhm.
in their budget.
If we're buying
So-
2,000, 300,000 sounds like a reasonable number, but
Well, theirs was 30 million, but
Yeah.
they listed how many they bought,
correct.
and it adds up, so the number makes a lot of sense. If you just say it's $300,000, that's for one. Like, how many are we buying? If we're buying 30, makes total sense.
All right, I'm gonna move to table.
Second.
the I am actually texting the fire chief right now, and I can see he's
Can we?
typing.
I was gonna say, can
So
we try? I was gonna recommend that we just. reach
Say
out to
somebody
the fire
call
chief.
Justin.
Yeah, just.
I was just doing the same thing.
We also might need this in our records, though, so we might not be able to just text.
Well, the select board.
I'm pretty sure
You
we'll
voted-
be
could ask
fine,
him
Jeremy.
to join the call.
Yeah, I was gonna say the select.
Yeah.
Oh,
board
I'm
perfect.
sure we'll
voted-
be fine, Jeremy.
Yeah, the select board voted to recommend. So
35 plus 4 rescue SCBA for
And the
That's
technology.
great.
that's
So 10
needed.
grand each. That was
Yep,
roughly what we were
perfect.
looking at, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
'cause they're-
35 plus 4 and the technology, and he said it's all a package.
That's great. So they were going to replace all of them. Because how many
Correct.
firemen do we have?
That's yeah.
Yeah, 35. And so then the 4 extra are the rescue. So that's why we're down so many firefighters. That's why we were put in the position where we had to privatize the ambulance service out, because we didn't safely have enough folks on the fire department to be able to house the group, or to staff the groups, to be able to do the ambulance service and fire at the same time.
So we're okay not taking that motion up and voting on that.
Yeah, I'll
motion?
withdraw my motion.
Perfect. All right. Any more questions?
Just to add, the chief also said it replaces the entire department, and they'll not keep any of the old ones because the old ones operate differently.
Okay. Good to know. So if there's no more questions, can I get a motion?
Motion to recommend to Petra.
Second Balin.
Okay. And we will do a roll call. So let me unshare my screen so I can see all of you again. Okay. Matt,
Barrowman, yes.
Jeremy,
Melio, yes.
Arthur,
Balin, yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Steve,
Copt, yes.
and Lamb's a yes as well. So we have voted to recommend Article 7. So the only article that is left for us, we need some answers from Wendy before we're ready to vote, is Article 5. So we can send out a doodle poll to try and find a time to come back together next week, ideally.
Is there any way that we could just, like, on the fly now, see if we have a general sense of times that work for folks, so we can get an idea of when we might be able to get a quorum together?
You also need 48 hours minimum for posting.
Yeah, so the earliest we could do it is Tuesday anyways.
Tuesday?
Let's just do it before town meeting. In my opinion.
I am firmly against that. I will. I think that's completely inappropriate.
Which,
Can you elaborate?
I have elaborated plenty on that.
Okay.
I think if we can get together, it would be good. So I'm available Tuesday and Wednesday night at
I'm
7.
not available Wednesday. I am available Tuesday. I'm available Tuesday, Thursday, but I'm not available Wednesday.
I can make any day next week work.
I think I'm with Arthur on that.
Is Thursday possible? Because I'm not available on I'm getting my eyes dilated on Tuesday, so I definitely won't be able to read the small numbers.
I'm not sure what my husband's schedule is for Thursday to see if he can do the kids stuff. So I would have to get back to you on Thursday. Wait, hold on. My sitter's here. Let me ask her if she can be available on Thursday.
Thursday's tough for me. I could probably force it, but it looks a little tough for me right now. I'm gonna be in New York.
Okay, maybe we do a doodle poll then, if that, just to clarify, because also another very important factor is whether or not Wendy can make it, and Wendy is not here to be able to.
There is that important detail, isn't there?
Yeah. So
Thursday does not work well for me. Like my babysitter's gone, so Tuesday would be best for me. So
okay.
If Wendy can be there, is it possible to do with
Absolutely.
Jackie and Liz? Okay.
Absolutely.
Tuesday works for me.
All right, great.
Okay. So maybe let's tentatively plan on Tuesday, but I'll confirm with Wendy tomorrow. Well, Liz and I will just have a chat with her and see her availability and go from there.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, everyone. And I just want to say welcome again to all our new members.
Thank you.
I can tell it's great having you guys and some fresh eyes on all this stuff. So thank you for all your questions tonight, and we will see you next week.
We need a
to
motion.
Thank
adjourn.
you.
Motion.
Gotta take a motion to adjourn. Sorry.
Motion to adjourn. Melio.
Second it. Barman,
And
second.
then we have to do roll call too, right?
Yeah.
Matt?
What do I say? Barman,
Yes.
Yes would be to adjourn.
Yes.
yes to adjourn.
Jeremy?
Melio, yes.
Arthur?
Yes.
Mike?
Yep. Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Lamb is also a yes, so we'll see you next week.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, all. Great to meet you.
Thanks all.